You think you can just stand there? Look at me when I'm talking to you.
If she wants to dream about standing beside my daughter, she can start by proving she isn't afraid of water.
Deep end. Now, if she wants to dream about standing beside my daughter, she can start by proving she isn't afraid of water, William Carter said. He held a crystal glass filled with expensive scotch in his right hand. He did not look at the water when he spoke. He looked straight at Naomi. The sun was hot over the pool deck in the backyard of the massive Houston estate. The water in the pool looked like a blue mirror, but William's eyes were cold and dark. Naomi stood near the edge of the patio. She was wearing a plain white uniform that was slightly too large in the shoulders. Her shoes were simple black flats. The left one had a small tear near the toe where the rubber had pulled away from the leather. She had glued it back together 3 different times, and each time, the glue left a faint yellow stain on the fabric. Her hair was pulled back into a tight, neat bun. Her hands were folded in front of her, holding a silver serving tray. She did not tremble. She did not look at the ground. She looked at William with a steady, quiet gaze that seemed to annoy him even more. The party was full of the most important people in the city. There were teachers from the private academy that cost $50,000 a year to attend. There were big business owners in silk suits and women in dresses that cost more than a small car. Everyone had been laughing just a moment ago. Now, the space around Naomi was silent. The only sound was the hum of the pool filter and the distant noise of city traffic. James Reynolds, the famous swimming coach, stood a few feet away. He had been smiling at Emily, William's daughter, just moments before. Now, James looked uncomfortable. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other. Beside him stood Sarah Miller, a local reporter who was holding a notepad. She watched the scene with wide, nervous eyes. Neither of them said a word. They were frozen by the sudden shift in the air. They were afraid of William, and they were afraid of what might happen if they stood up for the girl with the torn shoes. None of them could have known that in less than an hour, the person they were laughing at would be the only one left standing with their pride intact. William took a sip of his drink and smirked. He looked at the crowd. He wanted them to see how he could control the room. He wanted them to see how he could break a person just by using his voice and his status. He enjoyed the power he held over every single person at that party. He looked back at Naomi, and his smile grew sharper. "Well?" William asked, his voice booming across the patio. "Are you deaf? Or are you just as cowardly as I thought?" Emily, who was standing right next to her father, let out a soft, cruel laugh. She was wearing a gold-trimmed swimsuit and a thin silk cover-up. She looked at Naomi like she was looking at a piece of dirt on a clean floor. She was the star of the day. She was the one who was supposed to be perfect. She hated that Naomi was even in the same room as her. Naomi did not speak. She reached out and placed the silver tray on a small side table. Her movements were graceful and slow. She took off her black flats and lined them up neatly near a chair. She stood up straight. Her feet were bare on the hot concrete. She walked toward the deep end side of the pool. The silence was thick. Every single guest was staring. Some were holding their breath. Others looked down at their own drinks in fear. Have you ever walked into a place and felt like someone had already decided you did not belong there? Drop a comment and tell me where you are listening from right now. Subscribe to Black Scar's Stories. The history of how Naomi ended up standing on that edge was long and hard. 8 months earlier, Naomi had been living in a tiny apartment on the edge of town. She was 17 years old. Her mother had passed away 4 years before that, and her father had died even earlier. She was entirely alone in the world. She worked 3 different jobs just to pay the rent and keep the lights on. She was a cleaner, a stocker, and a night shift waitress. She never slept more than 4 hours a night. She had been a straight-A student since the 1st grade. She studied in the back of the bus. She studied while she waited for her shift to start. She studied by the light of a street lamp when the power went out in her room. Her teachers always told her she was the smartest kid they had ever seen. When she earned a full academic scholarship to the prestigious Oakwood Academy, she thought her life was finally going to change. She thought she could finally build a future. But the world was not that kind. To keep her scholarship, she had to work. She found a job at the Carter estate. At first, it seemed like a good fit. Emily, who was in the same grade at the academy, seemed nice. They were both 17. For the first 2 months, they would talk while Naomi polished the silverware. Emily would ask about history class, and Naomi would answer. They even shared a few lunches in the kitchen. But then, the rankings came out. Naomi had finished top in the class. Emily had finished second. You're right. I apologize. Let me reread your story structure carefully and follow it beat by beat, hitting every reveal in order. Target word count, 10,000 words. Deep end. Now. William Carter said it, the way men say things when the whole room is listening and they know it. Loud. Deliberate. With the particular confidence of someone who has never once said something like that and had it go wrong. He was standing at the edge of his pool in Buckhead, Atlanta, on a Saturday afternoon in May, holding a glass of scotch that cost more per bottle than most people made in 3 days. White linen shirt. Silver watch catching the sun. Chin tilted just slightly upward, the way it always tilted when he spoke to someone who worked for him. He pointed at the deep end. 41 people turned to look. The girl standing 6 feet away from him was 17 years old. Her name was Naomi Brooks, 5'5", built lean and precise in a way that had nothing to do with the black pants and white button shirt she was wearing. The Carter household uniform, pressed the night before, shoes polished at 6 that morning before the house woke up. Her hair was pinned back. She was holding a silver serving tray with empty glasses on it. She had been clearing the side table near the outdoor bar when William called her name across the pool deck in front of everyone. She looked at the pool. Not with fear. With something quieter than fear, and older than fear, and far more complicated than anything the 41 people standing on that deck could have named if they tried. Because none of them knew what they were looking at. They saw a maid at the edge of a rich man's pool being told to jump. They saw a powerful man making a powerless girl smaller in public. They thought they had read the whole room. They had not read one word of it. And not one of them could have known that, before this afternoon ended, the man doing the pointing would be the one on his knees. The party had been going 2 hours. William Carter had opened his property to the crowd he loved best, the kind that confirmed, simply by showing up, that he had arrived. Business partners in sport coats, academy board members with champagne, local TV reporters smiling with their cameras off, parents of Emily's teammates, and Emily herself, 16 years old, reigning city junior swimming champion, standing near the shallow end in a white sundress with a gold medal around her neck, glowing the way only someone who has never once been told they don't belong can glow. The man who started everything was standing near the outdoor bar. His name was Raymond Dunn, 61 years old. 34 years of coaching competitive swimming. 4 athletes sent to the Olympics. He had come as a favor. William had donated generously to the Academy's aquatics program, and Raymond had agreed to attend the celebration in return. He was holding a glass of sparkling water and talking to one of the Academy teachers when he noticed Naomi moving between the tables with her serving tray. He watched her the way coaches watch bodies they have trained their eyes to read. He noticed the posture first, the way she carried her weight on the balls of her feet, the stillness in her shoulders, the controlled precision in how her arms moved. He watched for 30 seconds. Then he said, mostly to himself, I still don't know how she does it. William was close enough to hear. He turned. Sorry? Raymond nodded toward Naomi. Your maid. She's in the same class as Emily at the academy, yes? Full scholarship? The academy teacher beside Raymond smiled. Near the top of the class academically. Working full-time and still keeping up with everything. That's honestly remarkable. Something moved across William's face. Fast. Gone before most people caught it. But it was there. Good grades don't make champions, William said. Too quick. Too loud. He looked at Emily. Then at Naomi. Then at the pool. The smile came back. That was when he called her name. "If you want to dream about standing beside my daughter," he said across the deck, loud enough for every guest to hear, "start by proving you're not afraid of the water." Emily smirked. Someone laughed. Then 2 people. Then the particular awful sound of a crowd deciding it is safe to laugh. Naomi set the serving tray on the nearest table. Slowly, she unpinned her hair. She bent down and unlaced her shoes. Both of them, one at a time, and set them side by side on the tile, toes pointing toward the water. Neat. Unhurried. Like someone who had already decided what was about to happen and was simply completing the steps. She walked to the edge of the deep end. "Deep end," William said again, just to make sure the whole room understood he was in control of this. She dove, not jumped, not slipped in from the side. Dove. Arms locked, hands pointed, body flat, a clean arc from the tile into the water. And the entry sound was almost nothing. A whisper. And then she was moving, and the laughter stopped the same second she entered the pool, because what was happening in that water was immediately, unmistakably, undeniably not what anyone had expected. She crossed 50 meters before Todd Ellison, William's business partner, finished his exhale. She hit the far wall and flipped. A competition turn, feet to the wall, body coiling and releasing. And came back in the other direction with a stroke rate that made Raymond Dunn set down his sparkling water and walk to the edge of the pool. Emily's smirk was gone. William's mouth was open. The crowd was completely silent. Naomi touched the wall on the return. She surfaced. She pushed the water from her face and looked up from the pool. Calm. Still. Like she had done this 10,000 times. Because she had. Raymond crouched at the pool's edge. He looked at her. "That entry?" he said. "Who taught you that?" Naomi looked at him steadily. "My dad," she said. Raymond's expression changed. "Did you ever compete?" Something moved across her face. Something complex. The way a person looks when they are thinking about a time in their life that was both the best thing and the worst thing, and cannot be separated into 2 different memories. "Until I was 14, she said. Raymond said, "Where?" She said, "Cedar Key, Florida." He went still. That particular stillness of a person whose memory has just been touched by something unexpected. He looked at her carefully. Then he reached into his jacket and took out his phone. His fingers moved fast, searching, scrolling, faster. The crowd watched him. Then he froze. His eyes went wide. He whispered, "No!" He turned the screen around slowly so the people standing closest could see it. The headline was from a sports journal 3 years old. "The He, Village Mermaid, Chasing World Go LD." Below it, a photograph. A 14-year-old girl in a red competition swimsuit with a state championship medal around her neck, looking directly into the camera with an expression that was not pride. It was certainty. The expression of someone who knows exactly where they are going and has no doubt about it. Raymond looked up at Naomi. "It's you," he said quietly. "It really is you." The crowd leaned in. Someone in the back said, "I remember those headlines." A woman near the outdoor bar said, "She was supposed to go international, and then she just disappeared." Every eye on the deck moved between the photograph on Raymond's screen and the girl climbing out of the pool in a soaked white shirt. Raymond stood. He looked at Naomi. "What happened?" he asked. Naomi was quiet for a moment. The water dripped from her clothes onto the tile. She looked at the pool. Then she looked at him. "My father died," she said. The deck went heavy. He was a rescue diver in Cedar Key. 2 children got pulled into a rip current off the coast one morning. He went in after them. She took a breath. He got both of them out. But he never came back. Nobody said one word. My mother couldn't keep my training going after that, so I stopped. I started working. And eventually, she looked at the house. "I came here." Raymond looked at the pool. He looked at William Carter. Then he looked back at Naomi. "You weren't forgotten because you lacked talent," he said. "You were forgotten because life asked too much of a 14-year-old girl." Naomi looked at the water. I stopped believing the pool had a place for me. Raymond said, I think it's been waiting for you to come back. William laughed, short and unconvincing. She hasn't competed in 3 years. One swim in a pool doesn't change anything. Raymond looked at him directly. She just crossed 50 meters in under 53 seconds. In street clothes. No warm-up. Cold water. He let that sit. Emily's personal best is 57.4. The silence that followed was a different kind of silence from before. Before it had been the silence of a crowd watching someone be humiliated. Now it was the silence of a crowd recalculating everything. Raymond turned to Naomi. I want you at the city qualifying trials tomorrow morning. William's jaw tightened. She'll embarrass herself in front of everyone. My daughter has never lost that race. Naomi looked at Raymond, then at the pool. Then she said quietly, I'm not racing to embarrass anyone. I'm racing because I promised my father I would never stop swimming. Nobody laughed. For the first time all afternoon, the crowd was not looking at William Carter. They were looking at her. And William noticed. He noticed because he had spent 26 years reading rooms, and right now, this room was reading something he had not written and could not correct. Something had started that he did not know how to stop. Now, let me take you back 8 months. Because you cannot understand what happened at that pool without knowing what Naomi Brooks had survived to get there. Her father, Marcus Brooks, grew up in Cedar Key, Florida, the kind of small Gulf Coast town where everybody knows the water and the water knows everybody back. He left at 18 on a partial swim scholarship to the University of Florida, studied exercise science, trained every morning, graduated, and went straight back home because Cedar Key was the kind of place that lives in you even when you leave it. He became a certified swim instructor at the Cedar Key Community Aquatic Center and a volunteer rescue diver for the town's emergency services because the town needed someone who could do that, and Marcus was someone who ran toward things other people ran away from. He married a school teacher named Diane, and they had Naomi 11 months later. He had her in the water at 3, not competing. Just together, the way a man who loves the water brings his child into it. By 7, she was swimming full lengths. By 9, she was entering regional competitions and winning them. By 12, she held records. By 14, she had a state championship title, a clear path toward the National Junior Development Program, and letters from universities that were not binding but were real. He trained her every morning before sunrise. 5:15 at the pool. Just the two of them, and the quiet water and the overhead lights humming. He taught her everything he knew about the technical work: position, breathing, turns, efficiency. But also the deeper things. The things that separate someone who swims fast from someone who is a swimmer. He used to say on cold, dark mornings when she was tired and had school in 2 hours, the race isn't won in the first half. It's won by the swimmer who stays calm. Then one Tuesday morning in October, 2 children from Cedar Key Elementary were swept off a dock by a rip current. Marcus was called. He was in the water in 6 minutes. He saved the first child. He saved the second. He got them both to the rescue boat. He did not come back. He was 41 years old. Diane Brooks worked 2 jobs after that. The teacher salary and weekend shifts at a restaurant in Gainesville. There was no money for elite training. The coaching fees, the travel, the equipment, the program costs. All of it required more than 2 jobs could produce when 2 jobs were already barely covering everything else. Naomi understood this without being told. She stopped competing. She started cooking and cleaning and helping her mother with the bills and managing grief the way young people manage it when they cannot afford to stop and feel all of it at once. At 16, she won a full academic scholarship to the Meridian Academy in Atlanta, one of the most competitive private secondary schools in Georgia. The scholarship covered tuition and books. For housing, the school connected her through an outreach program with a Buckhead family that offered room, board, and a small salary for domestic work. The Carter family. Emily had been warm at first. Genuinely warm. She helped Naomi carry her box upstairs. She showed her around the kitchen. She told her which cabinets had the good snacks. They studied together. shared meals, laughed on Sunday mornings. Naomi went to sleep that first week thinking, maybe this is going to be okay. It was okay for exactly 6 weeks. The mid-semester academic rankings came out. Naomi was 4th. Emily was 11th. William saw the list. That evening, Naomi heard him through Emily's closed bedroom door, not because she was listening, because his voice did not understand volume. He said, "She is not your equal. People like her belong in the service industry. She is here because of a handout. Never let her forget what she is." Emily was 16, and her father had shaped her whole life. The warmth drained out of her the way heat leaves a room when the furnace cuts off, slowly at first, then all at once. She started making comments at school. Small ones in hallways, away from teachers. She told classmates Naomi's scholarship was a charity case. She threw Naomi's textbooks off a library shelf once and when Naomi picked them up. Emily said, "Focus on cleaning, not on competing with people out of your league." She made Naomi clean the swimming pool at 10 o'clock at night. She mocked her clothes in front of classmates. She found every small pressure point she could, and she pressed it regularly, and she watched her father smile when she reported back. Then, William removed Naomi's last exit. His Rolex Datejust went missing on a Thursday. $14,200. It was found in the laundry room storage area, Naomi's assigned space. William called her into his study. He sat behind his desk. He did not raise his voice. He explained that the debt was hers. No salary until it was repaid. No contract adjustment. No documentation. Just work, indefinitely, until he decided it was settled. Naomi sat across from him, and she thought about her mother in Cedar Key working 2 jobs. She thought about where she would go if the arrangement collapsed, whether the scholarship would survive the disruption, whether going home meant giving up the only path forward she had. She said, "Okay." She went to her room. She took out a plain composition notebook and she wrote down everything. The date, the time, exactly what was said, exactly who was present. She wrote it the way her father had taught her to log training sessions. Specific and clear, just facts, no editorializing, because feelings change and paper does not. She had been keeping that notebook since week 3. She had 17 pages before the watch. She had 19 after it. She kept writing. Every night. For 7 months. She did not know yet what it was building toward. But something else was building in a direction William Carter had not thought to look. In fact, 2 things were building. And both of them were already in motion before William ever pointed at the deep end. The first was a woman named Angela Morris, 28 years old. Investigative journalist at the Atlanta Tribune. She had been working a story on the Academy's Domestic Assistance Scholarship Program for 6 weeks before the pool party. She had interviewed former scholarship students. 3 of them mentioned the Carter household. 2 mentioned William by name. She had found Gloria Tate, the Carter household coordinator who had resigned 2 months earlier. Gloria had seen something one afternoon in the laundry room. She had watched William walk in when he thought the house was empty. She had watched him crouch near the storage shelf. She had not understood it until 3 days later when the watch was reported missing. She had said nothing at the time. She needed her job. She had rent. 9 years in that house had taught her what speaking cost. But she had taken one photograph on her phone. The laundry room security camera mounted in the corner. The camera that recorded continuously to a cloud server that William had not checked in months. Gloria gave that photograph to Angela Morris. Angela had also found, through city development records, a land purchase William's company had made 14 years earlier in Cedar Key, Florida, a waterfront project. The deal required clearing several community structures. Among them, the Cedar Key Community Aquatic Center, the pool where Marcus Brooks had trained his daughter before sunrise, the pool that had sent Cedar Key children to regional competitions for 30 years. Gone. Because of a land deal. Because a man in Atlanta needed the property clear, and the people it served were not part of his calculation. William Carter had no idea. He had made the deal and moved to the next one, and the community it destroyed had simply stopped being part of his story. Angela Morris had connected every piece. She had the photograph, she had the development records, she had sources. She had been at the pool party because William's assistant had added her to the guest list for a profile piece, and she had been standing near the back hedge with her recorder running the moment William pointed at the deep end and said, "Now." She watched everything. She heard everything. She did not move from that hedge. She drove to her office that evening and worked until 2 in the morning. Raymond Dunn trained Naomi personally for 3 weeks before the city championship. 5 o'clock every morning at the academy pool. 90 minutes. Then school. Then back to the Carter house where she cleaned and cooked and ironed and completed every single task on her list without a word and without a visible crack because she was a professional and because she needed every record to show exactly who she was when all of this was over. Then she studied until 11. Set her alarm for 4:30. Did it again. Emily watched her leave at 5 every morning from the upstairs window. She did not tell anyone. She just watched, and she noticed something that she could not stop noticing. After the watch, after the debt, after years of what William had put her through, after the pool party humiliation in front of 41 people, Naomi had not once blamed Emily to her face, had not said one harsh word about William in Emily's presence, had not looked at Emily with the anger or contempt that Emily understood she had fully earned. Naomi just kept showing up, kept working, kept being completely and without apology exactly who she was. Emily had been taught her whole life that dignity was something you maintained by keeping certain people beneath you. What she was watching through that window every single morning looked like something else entirely. It looked like dignity that did not need anyone beneath it to exist. On a Saturday, when William was away, Emily drove 3.5 hours to Cedar Key. She found the library. She found the archive boxes. She found the newspaper articles. Naomi at 9, winning her first regional title. Naomi at 12 with a state record. The headlines again. The Village Mermaid, Chasing World Go LD. America's Youngest Swimming Sensation. The Fishing Village Girl, Destined FOR, The World Stage. She found the article about Marcus Brooks dying in the water that had been his whole life. She sat with it for a long time. Then she went to a waterfront restaurant called Pearls that had been there since 1978. The woman behind the counter had a photograph on the wall. A community swim team, 12 years old. Marcus in the back row. One hand on a child's shoulder. Looking at the camera with an expression Emily did not have a word for but felt somewhere in her chest. Everyone knew Marcus, the woman said. Best man this town ever put in the water. Trained half the kids on this dock. She shook her head. Then Carter Development Group came and took the aquatic center right out from under us. 14 years ago. Just needed the land. Didn't matter one bit what it cost people here. Emily's hands went still on the counter. Carter Development Group, her father's company. The same name said with pride at her dinner table her whole life. Said in the context of awards and donations and plaques and success. Said here like a wound that had never fully closed. She drove back to Atlanta. Sat in the driveway for 20 minutes. Then she went inside and called her father. She told him everything. Cedar Key, the aquatic center, the woman at Pearls, Carter Development Group. All of it. William listened, then said, "I'm a businessman. Land deals involve trade-offs. That's how this works." Emily said, "She's been living in our house working for free because you put a watch on that shelf." Silence. Emily said, "Someone already sent footage to the Tribune." She did not have the complete picture yet. But Angela Morris had responded to her contact form message within the hour, and they had spoken for 40 minutes, and Emily knew enough. William said, very quietly, "Come home." Emily said, "I am home." She hung up. The Tribune story ran 31 hours later. S. Scholarship Student Works paid NBUCKHEAD Home After Employer Plants Stolen Watch each. Record yes shall developer tied 2O destructan of fathers training facility. 4,000 words. The cloud footage still image. William's hand placing the watch on the shelf, the Cedar Key development records, recorded audio from the pool party, a quote from Raymond Dunn, a quote from Gloria Tate. 7 months of dated, signed, specific notes written by a 17-year-old girl in a plain notebook at 11 at night. By noon, 44,000 shares. By evening, 6 national outlets running follow-up pieces. The Georgia Department of Labor opened an inquiry. The Academy suspended the domestic assistance program pending audit. Then, former employees started calling. First one, then 2, then a third. They described a pattern. William had framed workers for theft before. The watch was not the first time. A retired security guard named Bernard Cole had worked on the Carter property 3 years earlier. He came forward and told Angela Morris, "I watched him place something in that locker. I saw it. I didn't say anything because I needed the job." He paused. "I can't need it more than I need to say this." Police reopened the theft case. Security archives were recovered. The footage was authenticated. It showed William Carter in the laundry room, his hand going behind the shelf, the watch disappearing from his hand into the shadows. Naomi's record was cleared completely. Every unpaid month, every debt she had been told she owed. Every day she had worked without salary because of a lie William had placed there with his own hand. All of it undone. All of it documented. All of it on record forever. The City Junior Championship was held at the Meridian Academy Competition Complex on a Saturday morning. The building had a plaque near the entrance, the Carter Foundation. William's name, William's money. He walked past it without looking at it. He was there because Emily had told him he would sit in those stands and watch what he had tried to bury. He had said nothing. He had gone. The stands were full. Television cameras, parents, reporters, students. And in the back row, Angela Morris with a notebook and a recorder, very still, watching everything. Naomi stood on deck in a borrowed competition suit, goggles on her forehead, cap in hand. She looked at the pool. She was thinking about her father. Not with grief exactly. With the quality of presence that people we lose develop over time, where they stop being an absence you carry and become a voice you hear. She heard him as clearly as if he were standing next to her on the tile. The race isn't won in the first half. It's won by the swimmer who stays calm. Emily was 2 blocks to her right. She did not look at Naomi. She was in her pre-race routine, the practice ritual of 4 years of winning this event. She was the defending champion. She had never lost here. The starter called them up. Naomi stepped onto the block. She felt the textured surface under her feet, took one breath, let it all the way out. She thought, "Dad." I came back. The signal fired. Emily exploded off the block. She had the fast reaction she had always had, the long entry, the high stroke rate she had refined over hundreds of hours. She took the lead in the first 10 meters and held it the way she always held it. By the 25-meter mark, she had a full body length on the field. William leaned forward in the 5th row and began to clap. Naomi was not chasing. The water was the water, and everything outside the pool did not exist. She found her rhythm at 15 meters. She stayed in it. She thought about what Raymond had told her for 3 straight weeks. Trust the back half. Build. Don't reach for it. Let it come. She was building. 60 meters in, the crowd changed. The sound in the stands changed. People who had been watching Emily hold her lead began to feel the gap shrinking and leaned forward. 70 meters. Half a body length. 80 meters. Nothing. They were level. The sound from the stands was something between a gasp and a roar. The kind of sound that happens when something a crowd did not believe was possible is happening right in front of them, and they can feel it before they can name it. Emily felt her. She reached for more. She went into her reserves and pushed harder than she had pushed in 4 years of racing. It was not enough. Naomi touched the wall. The board updated. 52.81 seconds. Georgia junior record. 3rd fastest junior time in the Southeast in 11 years. The stadium erupted. Emily surfaced. She looked at the board. She took her goggles off. She looked at Naomi treading water in the next lane. She swam to the lane line. She reached across it. Naomi took her hand. Emily said, "I'm sorry. I became everything my father built, but you never stopped being yourself." Her voice cracked on the last word. Naomi held her hand in the water. She said, "There was never anything to forgive." They stayed like that for a moment, both still breathing hard, both still in the water that had just shown everyone in that building exactly who they were. In the 5th row, William Carter sat and looked at the board, at the number, at his daughter's hand in Naomi's, at the stands full of people on their feet around him. He was the only person in his section who was sitting. He sat there, still. The number on the board not moving. His name on the plaque at the entrance not moving. Something inside him beginning to shift in a way that had no clean name yet. Something that would take a long time to fully arrive. But it had started. He could not stop it now. Let me tell you where everyone ended up. Gloria Tate was named at the Georgia Press Association Awards dinner by Angela Morris in front of a room full of journalists as someone who had found the courage to speak after years of silence. Gloria sat at a table with her sister and heard her name spoken like something that mattered. It did not undo 9 years, but it was a beginning. Angela Morris's piece won the Georgia Press Association Award for Investigative Journalism. In her acceptance remarks, she said, "Most of the time, the story is already there. Someone just has to be willing to hold the photograph." Raymond Dunn submitted Naomi's times and assessments to USA Swimming and attended every 5 o'clock morning session for 4 months without being asked or paid. He said once to a colleague, "In 34 years, I've been waiting for something like this to come back around." Bernard Cole, the retired security guard who had watched and said nothing for 3 years and then said something when it mattered. He slept better after he made the call. Not perfectly, but better. He told his wife that night, "I should have said it sooner." She said, "You said it when it counted." He said, "I hope that's enough." She said, "It was enough for that girl. That's the one that matters." Emily Carter's times went up that season, the way times go up when something fundamental shifts and the certainty a person had confused with confidence falls away. She went back to basics. She worked harder than she ever had when winning was easy. She wrote Naomi one letter. She said, "I'm learning what real competition feels like, where you want the person in the next lane to be great, not smaller. I'm learning it from watching you." Naomi wrote back, "That's the only kind worth having." William Carter paid what the court required him to pay. He complied with every term. He sold the Buckhead house and moved to a smaller place in Midtown and told himself he preferred it. Some business relationships survived. Others did not. He kept one item on his desk in the new place, a printout of the Tribune piece, just the photograph. Naomi at 14, state champion, certain of where she was going. A plain frame, corner of the desk, where he would see it every morning. He had placed it there deliberately. He had not moved it. That is where he was. 4 months after the championship, Naomi received an envelope. USA Swimming. Official letterhead. Senior Elite Development Track. Words like unanimous evaluation and exceptional trajectory. She read it, standing in the dormitory hallway in her wet training clothes, cap still in hand. She called her mother. Diane Brooks answered on the second ring. Naomi read the letter out loud. Every word. Diane was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "He knew, baby. Your father used to say, 'I'm not training you to swim. I'm training you for the moment when swimming is going to ask for everything you have.' He always said, 'There's going to be a second half.' He put everything he had into you, so when it came, you'd have something to give it." Naomi stood in the hallway with the phone pressed to her ear and her hand over her mouth. She took a breath. She said, "I'm going to visit him first, before the program starts." She drove to Cedar Key on a Sunday. She went to the cemetery at the edge of town where, on quiet mornings, you could hear the gulf from where Marcus lay. She knelt at the headstone. She took her championship medal out of her jacket pocket and placed it against the stone. She stayed there for a while without speaking. The morning was quiet and still, and the light was coming up over the water the way it came up in Cedar Key, wide and slow and golden, the way her father used to wake her for, the way he would say softly, "Come on, the water's waiting." She said, "We made it back, Dad." She stood up. She left the medal there. She walked back toward the car. On the way out of Cedar Key, she drove past the construction site where the old aquatic center had once stood before Carter Development Group had taken it away. There was a fence around it now. A sign. The new building going up beam by beam, paid for by a legal settlement term that Naomi had requested herself. Not money to her account. A pool. Back in Cedar Key. For the children who came after. The sign read, Cedar Key Community Aquatic Center. Coming 2026. She stopped the car. She looked at the sign. She thought about a 7-year-old version of herself standing at the edge of the water, not knowing yet what the water was about to show her. She thought about what her father had known even then. That what he was giving her in those early mornings was not a sport. It was a language. A way of understanding who she was that no one could take away because it lived in her body, and her body remembered it even after 3 years of silence. She put the car in drive. She had training at 5 the next morning, and she was going to be on time. 1 year after the championship, on a Saturday morning in Cedar Key, the new aquatic center opened. Old fishermen came in their good shirts. Women from Pearl's restaurant came. Children from the elementary school came with their parents and stood at the edges of the pool looking at the water with that particular expression. The one Naomi recognized because she had worn it herself at 9 years old. A 7-year-old girl in a purple swimsuit stood at the shallow end. She looked at the water. The swim instructor crouched beside her. "Ready?" he said. She nodded. She jumped. The water received her the way water always does. Without judgment, without history, without any interest in who your parents were or what your last name was or what anyone had ever tried to convince you that you were or were not. The water only ever knows what is true. The sign above the entrance read, Cedar Key Community Aquatic Center. In smaller letters below it, in memory of Marcus Brooks, rescue diver, swim instructor, father. Far away, on a starting block in Charlotte, North Carolina, a young woman in a red competition suit adjusted her goggles and looked at the pool in front of her. She took one breath. She let it all the way out. She heard a voice. The same voice she had been hearing since she was 3 years old, standing in the water before sunrise, her father's hands steady on her small back. Stay calm. Trust the back half. The race isn't won in the first half. The signal fired. And Naomi Brooks went back into the water. I want to say something to you directly before we go. If you are in your uniform right now, doing the job, keeping the notebook, staying calm when the room has built itself against you, your record matters. What you know about yourself is true, even when no one around you is saying it out loud. Write it down. Date it. Sign it. The paper does not lie, even when the people do. And if you have been standing at the edge of something with your feet, not moving, watching something happen that you could have stopped and didn't, the next moment is still yours. What you do with the next one is the only answer that can begin to speak to the last one. You cannot go back. You can go forward. That is still something. If you know someone who has been doing the quiet work, the 5 in the morning work, the staying steady when everything is designed to make you fall apart work, share this story with them. Not for the numbers, because they need to know that someone else made it across the pool. The dream that tragedy interrupted didn't just return. It came back faster. And when it came back, it built something that will outlast every person who tried to stop it. A pool in a small fishing town. A sign above the door. A little girl in a purple swimsuit jumping into water that was always going to be hers. That is what happens when you don't hand them your dignity. They can reach for it. They can try to take it. But they can only have it if you give it to them. Naomi Brooks never gave it to them. Not once. This has been Black Scars.